across the Volturno. Well, it was here at
Benefro.
Benefro.
What's that on? That's on page
here.
66. Well, you guys kind of circled around the Monte Casino there.
Well, see, the 45th Division was where we went in at Salerno in an attempt to relieve pressure on the 45th Division. I mean, when the tanks came in on us, and the tank destroyer destroyed the tank, we were trying to relieve the 45th Division. Then the 45th Division, we went out through Benevento, and we went on up through, and we crossed the Volturno up here with the well, the 40.
They say the 34th.
45th.
Yeah.
We shifted this road right here. We moved back over more with the 34th.
Yeah.
And yeah, we put another bridge across the river. Here, we put another bridge across there at night.
Yeah.
And this was in the drive into Ward Casino.
Yeah.
Well, we put that bridge in, and we moved a little town that's not there. I believe the name is Cali. The town of Cali, Italy. And
down to doing this one either.
no, it was just a small place.
Yeah.
And that's where they stopped us and pulled us back to Naples to make the Angio beachhead. That's as far as we got.
Yeah.
We avoided the whole Monte Casino battle by going to Angio.
Yeah.
But it was a trade-off because
Angio wasn't a whole lot
I mean, Angio just wasn't a great big
party either. Yeah.
ball of fun.
Well, the idea of going to Angio is to cut off supply lines and all to Monte Casino.
Cut. Well, we could have done it.
Yeah.
It was done, except we couldn't hold it because
Yeah.
we didn't have the manpower to hold it. If we'd had another division, hell, there never would have been a casino. We would have starved them off. Oh.
We'll just cut them off and left enough people there to kind of hold that cut off and then going on.
For the furthest, when we pulled back to hold a defensive position, the entire beachhead wasn't 10 miles deep, and they were sitting up here on the mountains, looking right down on you. You know?
Yeah.
We were up on the right flank where the British 56, or left flank, right pretty close to the coast with the British 56 Division.
73, yeah. Kind of have a bearing to go by. Marked them different or not? No, they're just all of one.
I guess this was the original beachhead. This is showing the breakout.
Yeah.
But we were up in this area with the British 56 Division for 45 days. We held a defensive position for the British infantry. Then we pulled back to Angio. No, we didn't get well to Angio, and then they moved us down to the south flank, which was the special service group down on the Mussolini Canal. And when we broke off the beachhead, U.S. 2nd and 6th Corps, we met, and then we swung around and went up through Casina, and this little town of Velletri up here was the one that we were going to take. That the MPs got in our way.
Did I have that right?
It's in there, yeah.
I never did find it on the map, but yeah, I see it now.
Mhm.
On that map on 73, yeah. Looks like a pretty good sized town according to that map.
Well, it wasn't. It was a pretty good sized town for then, yeah. It was right in the edge of the mountains. It was just the beginning of the mountains there,
Yeah.
from the coastal plain, and you're just moving into the mountains there.
I don't know if I had that all right. Maybe I had that sorted out different. The two things I remembered that you had told about was, of course, getting your collar shot up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't remember where that was.
That was on the Beachhead. That was during the stagnant point
Where you were
Beachhead.
Caught.
That's where I was in that defensive position.
Yeah. Just kind of laying there, and they were just.
Well, we had a strong point, they called it.
Yeah.
And,
Well, then there was the colonel that you liked so well.
well, the colonel that we liked, he was there with us on the Beachhead, and he was not our he was our favorite worst enemy at that particular time. I mean, favorite. And he was the one that told the British, you know, that, or they offered a relief. We'd been in the lines, I don't know, 30 days or 35 days or something like that. We don't need it, my boys can handle it, you know. We'd had a mammoth number of casualties already. And he refused relief. He was in his glory, so we ended up 45 days before we finally were relieved. But then we were relieved to move over and take up positions. I mean, we went straight from the north end of the Beachhead to the south end of the Beachhead.
Yeah.
To relieve the Special Forces.
Yeah.
Well, what we had to do with the Special Forces, we had to go with them for several days, trips at night. I was in the Pioneer Platoon, so it fell to us to do night work.
Yeah.
So it was up to, then we had to do the night work with the Special Forces, which was outposts. And they had created so much havoc, the Special Forces, with the Germans, that they had moved back a mile between the front, because they'd send out a patrol of a battalion, which was 600-800 men in a patrol, and they'd infiltrate. They'd sneak through the lines and get in the back and just raise holy hell back there, destroying whatever and killing whoever, and then infiltrate back out. And so the Germans, they built up a hell of a strong point, a strong main line of resistance, but they got them far enough away because they kept raising so much hell. And then the Germans, of course, had outposts out in front of them, so that they could try to pick them up as they were coming in. Well, the Special Forces had put in an intensive minefield in barbed wire. They had barbed wire entanglements, but it was on stakes and flat, and it was about knee-high, and then from knee-high down to the ground was this barbed wire. Yeah. And it was in depth. It would probably be, maybe 150 to 100 yards deep.
You had to cross 100 yards of this mess.
You got to get through this, but there was mines in there too,
Yeah.
trip wires and all this other good stuff. And in order to get out, you had to go over the burn, the Mussolini Canal. When they dug it, they just piled the dirt up in great big mounds. And so there was a hill up here that was probably 35, 40 feet up this hill. Well, what they had done is they had tunneled through this thing and sandbagged up, and they had machine guns in this burn, so that hell they couldn't see them, they couldn't find them because they didn't destroy the outward appearance of the mound, and so they'd stick, and they found dual 50 caliber machine guns that they had taken off of aircraft that crashed. There was some aircraft that crashed and back of them. And they'd taken these dual 50s off of it, which was two 50s mounted. And
side by side, yeah.
Yeah, and they had a more rapid fire than the than the ones we had, the ground mounts. So they had set these things up inside of this tunnel, and they would, and all night long, whenever they just feel like it, they'd fire bursts of this stuff, and they'd grazing fire, they called it. About 3 feet off the ground, they'd fire out across this field. It was flat. This was the coastal plain in the south side, and they just and sweep it across the area. You know, if anybody's standing around, anything was out there, like hell,
Get hit.
they were going to be hit. So they do this all night long, just every now and then hit. Well, you had a certain length of time to get out into your position, your observation post.
Well, they sweep. You knew when.
And then they'd sweep over you. You
Yeah.
didn't stand up.
Yeah.
If you stood up, you were dead.
Yeah.
Anything standing after you were in position, if you were out there and somebody was standing, you killed them.
Yeah.
So you didn't stand up for anything. You took a leak, you laid over on your side, then you take a leak and you lay right back in it.
Yeah.
But that's the way they were fighting, these people. Well, the Germans, like I said, everybody hated their guts, and they moved away from those boys.
Yeah.
It was an American-Canadian outfit. It was about half and half American-Canadian. And to get out of your minefield, they had a path just wide enough for single file people to walk through. And it started out like so, and so, and so.
Zigzag.
It zigzagged through this minefield and barbed wire entanglement that they'd built up. We'd been there long enough that they'd, over time, they just kept working at night on the thing, building it out there. So I know whoever cleared that mess up with that.
Go back and clean it up after, yeah.
But it was a defensive position that they weren't coming across there.
Yeah.
There was no way they were.
Not without some heavy equipment, anyway.
Well, even so, they had to pick up the mines.
Yeah.
If they had heavy equipment, you can't run across a mine with them.
Yeah.
But it was quite a charge. Well, the first night we were with them, we went out and laid out on the ground, on top of the ground. We went out about 300 yards out. It probably, a half mile maybe. And just laid out here in this field. Well, there was a dead cow there, and the odor was very fragrant. And so you lay on around something like this because they wouldn't come fiddling around there. Well, I don't know, sometime on toward daylight or before, it might be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, this one guy, for some unknown reason, stood up, and the guy in back of him killed him. He hit him with a Tommy gun. And there was one of ours. There was one of the special forces. But why in the world he stood up,
One of the special forces guys stood up?
Yeah,
Who
one of
would
the
know better,
special
had been there
forces.
for a while, yeah.
He'd been there.
I could understand why maybe one of the new guys had just gotten in and was kind of finding a way
around.
around. Yeah.
And they put 3 Tommy gun slugs, 45s in them. And of course, when this Tommy gun fired, everybody, oh boy, we're in for it.
Yeah, something's happening.
Yeah, so you start become extremely alert.
Yeah.
But then
You woke up.
finally, you don't go to sleep when you're out there like that. Nobody. You talk about scared.
Yeah.
But what we did, well, not that night, I don't guess it was. It was a couple of nights later. you heard these Germans over doing something. They were making a noise over to our right front. And so you don't know exactly where it is, so you call back and say, hey, they're doing something over here in this segment. So put a couple of rounds, mortar rounds over in here and see what happens. Well, they put a couple of 81 millimeter mortars over in there. And did anything happen? Well, it shifted a little bit, and let's see if we can pick them up. So they shifted a little bit, and all of a sudden you hear one of them yell, hey, you got him, put him in. Oh, then they started laying them in.
Find the target, yeah.
So that's what you did all night. You're just trying to create a problem. Well, at the same time, whenever these people back in the tunnel decided to, they just fire these twin 50s, and sweep right over you. All night long, these things are coming over you, but just not waist high over here.
Keep you hugging the ground, even your own
yeah,
fire.
But it kept people away from you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of a sudden, here come these things, you zipping by, they pop when they go by you. They're pretty good clip. I think those 50s had something like a 3,000 foot muzzle velocity.
Crazy.
That was part of the Enjoy experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that.
They also in that Enjoy Beachhead, we'd sit in our foxholes because when they started the sequence of events to break out of it, break away. I told the story about the 1,000 artillery pieces firing and had time on target. That is, all 1,000 shells detonated the same instant in a given area. And what they did was they fired everything from 75s to 240 millimeters. There's 75s, 105s, 155s, 240 millimeters, and the ships out in the harbor would all fire in sequence, so that their projectiles would
strike about
detonate
the same time, yeah.
about the same instant in a confined area.
Yeah.
And they'd pick an area tonight, and they'd fire for 15 minutes. 15 minutes in this area tonight. Tomorrow morning, just at daylight, they'd fire 15 minutes in another assigned area. And then just at dusk that night, they'd fire 15 more minutes in another assigned area. In other words, they were just softening up the whole main line of resistance. Whatever was out there, they didn't know what was there. They just picked this area, and they put those 1,000 projectiles in there at the same instant for 15 minutes. They had them timed. We'd set up in our foxholes and watch them fire. The 75s would fire. You'd see the fire blast out of them. And then the 105s would fire. These are howitzers. They were lobbing.
Yeah.
And then you get back to the long toms. The long toms were rifles. They're firing straight in. And then the 240s, they're lobbing in. Well, your 155s had a 17-mile range. Of course, everything was packed in on this 10-mile deep, 10-mile wide beachhead. And so and then on down back, you'd see the ships firing out in the bay, firing, and it was all. When they broke out, when they finally broke out of the beachhead, they found places you step from one hole to the next, in confined areas. And the areas that they picked, they were coming out of there with. And you found some of them that were still alive in their dugouts. They had some elaborate.
Well, they'd had the same kind of time the special forces had to set up defensive positions.
Set up a defensive spot, and they. When we broke out of there were some of them that were completely addled. They were just out of their head.
Yeah.
From this concentrated artillery fire.
Yeah.
Then they, of course, they come over and saturate bombed. They bombed. From my foxhole there one time I counted 550 planes, bombers. And they come over and they started about a quarter of a mile in front of us, bombing, and the wind was going away from us. And then they bombed the area, the smoke area. As the smoke drifted away from the beachhead, they'd bomb in that area, and there's 550 of them that I counted.
Yeah.
And I saw them shoot down 5 out of it. Yeah. You'd see one pull out of the formation and come around, maybe 1 or 2 get out of it, and the whole thing just disappear in the air.
Yeah.
There's a big cloud of smoke.
Yeah, I mean,
fire.
you got a pile of stub munition on them, you know, you get a fire on one, you don't have long, I wouldn't think.
They hit them. And those planes in those days, they get up 2,000 foot, or 2,000.
20,000.
20,000 was maximum they could go up.
Yeah.
17,000 feet was about where they had to hang in there, fully loaded.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when they unloaded their bombs, they could
Do a little more altitude, yeah.
But and then those 88 millimeter anti-aircraft fires they had, they were deadly with those things.
Only shot down 5 out of 550, though. I mean,
Well, of course, when you're bombing troops on the ground, you're just saturating bombing.
Yeah.
And they don't have a hell of a lot of anti-aircraft fire.
Yeah.
The anti-aircraft fire is
industrial stuff and all their
more in the defensive positions where they're fixed, but they did have 37 millimeters, 40 millimeters, and 50 caliber, 20 millimeter anti-aircraft guns, but and the 88s. But and they had their flak wagons, they called them, so they could depress them and use them against personnel or up anti-aircraft fire. And they had the 88s the same way. But it wasn't like we had in our defense. Well, take for example a ship. A ship invasion craft or whatever. Your destroyers, cruisers. They were nothing but guns, you know. They just had pom-pom guns. They had 20 millimeter flaks. They had 40 millimeters. They even used their naval rifles, their 3-inch rifles, and they were all proximity fuse, or always fuse cut to go according to radar settings, where they're supposed to detonate in here. Of course, not all of them did.
Yeah.
Some of them came back down.
Yeah.
But it was a sight to see those things firing. It just, you couldn't see how anything could come out of it.
Yeah.
When they're in a strong defensive position.
Yeah. And boys that flew in those things, you know, they had hours of leisure, but just moments of terror, and that moment's terror had to be...
That had to be sheer terror, too, because there's nowhere to go. That's the same terror that you felt when you're on an invasion craft and they're bombing you.
Yeah.
Because you know where you're going. The only thing you can do is just lay there on a steel deck and just hope they don't hit.
Yeah.
And if they do, hope it's quick.
Hope they hit good.
They do. They're usually quick, yeah. It's, I don't know. Strafing, to me, the most feared and panicked that you could be was strafing by aircraft. That was terror.
Well, you didn't experience much of that after you got to a certain point.
After we got, well, the last time that we were strafed was in Italy.
Out of Salerno or before that?
It was out of Salerno.
Yeah.
We were moving up probably around a little town of Alif. That was before you got to Benevento from the coast. It was a small place. we were there was a whole string of refugees, Italians, moving down the highway, and we were pulled to the side, sitting, resting, and had a half track, and there was probably a company of us in there. No, there wasn't a company. There was probably a couple of platoons. And we were doing a little, I don't even know what we were doing there. I guess we were just sitting there. And a whole string of these Italian refugees were down through there, and they came over the hill and strafed the hell out of us. They killed several of the boys that were there, and then a bunch of Italian civilians.
Yeah.
2 planes did it.
Not much you can do with that either, I don't guess.
There's not a lot you can do. You can fire at them, but they're in and out so quick you can't really get a beat on them.
Yeah.
They fired at them with the 50s on the half track, and some of them fired with their rifles, but they didn't bother.
Well,
They're in and out so fast you can't get in.
You don't have time to get much cover or anything.
Unless you can see them coming, which you don't see them covering, because they're down on the deck. They spot you from up above or from over, and they swing around and come back down and down right on the deck. And if there's any woods or anything, they're down, so you don't see them till they get right there, and then you don't see them then when they leave.
Yeah.
Want more coffee? All decaf.
Sure, I'll be, as they say, racing like a piss horse all the way home, or something like that anyway.
But
It won't be the caffeine. It'll be the liquid, though.
we ended up somewhere in that area with controlling the air.
Yeah, by then they...
But Anzio now, they had planes there, but not for strafing. They strictly used them for trying to knock out ships or knock out big emplacements.
Yeah, they were pretty well husbanding their resources and their aircraft by then.
They just didn't have the spare, because I told a story about sitting there on this little knoll that we were on, where the mortars were in back of us and the British tanks were down back of us. And every morning they'd fly down and bomb the ships in the harbor in Anzio. And they'd come back, and this one plane would come back every morning, the same thing. He'd be below us. You'd look down and see him, and he'd sweep over us, and he'd grin as he went by. And the guy said, well, let's turn the 50 around and get him, you know. I go, don't you do it, because if you miss him, you know, he's going to dig you out of here.
Yeah.
You won't.
He'll come back looking for you next time.
You leave that guy alone, you know.
He knows where you are.
Yeah. Well, what we did was we called a British liaison officer with us, and we told him what was happening. Every morning he'd come down through here, and the next morning there was a couple of Spitfires up above
Waiting on him.
And they caught him before he got to us. And what happened to him was, when they started in on him, he came up to get altitude.
Fighting. Right.
And when he came up, he got up maybe a couple thousand feet, and they hit him and knocked the whole tail section of his plane off. And he bailed out, the pilot did, and the wind was blowing back, and he drifted away from us. Well, some of the guys in my outfit captured him. But the plane just circled around and around and around and came down, and where the mortars were, right in back of us, maybe a little bit beyond the road out here, this plane ended up straddling that creek bed that the mortars were in, the wings on either side of it, and the motor was still running, you know, just idling.
Yeah.
And it just circled around and around and around and around, came down. If a pilot had stayed in, it wouldn't have hurt him.
Yeah.
I mean, it just
came down gently, huh?
That gently it came down, yeah. Like one of these whirly gigs that you pulled up and it went up and come back down. Just slowly came down. Came down to rest there on that ditch.
Well, they captured him. I wonder if he was smiling when they captured him.
I think he was happy to get out of
Probably.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many times you try to get out with your
If I could have
foot,
thought
with your toe taken off or anything?
anything, I would
Few
get out
people
of
did
that
shot
mess.
themselves in the feet, didn't
There
they?
were some of them,
Things
and
like
some of them got put their foot up under tank treads to get their feet messed
that.
up.
No, I expected,
Get out of it.
I'd probably be one of the first.
I see some of the guys that I was with laying with their feet out of a foxhole during artillery barrage, hoping to get hit in the foot.
Well, the other thing I remembered you telling about was, I don't know if it was in France or where, that when you finally got Z8, I think you called it, that last
Hoorah.
excursion, yeah, but I never did get that on tape. I don't know whether you just never told that or not.
Well, that happened as you're going through the Siegfried line.
Yeah.
Outside of a little town of Epinal, and I guess it was in Luxembourg. We were through that. They pulled us out of there. We went on in, and I don't know what the name of the town. We ended up in a defensive position for a few days. It was just a holding. We were infantry again. And they pulled us out of there, and we started back in and take up another spot, and the orders were for us to take and hold and make a defensive strong point in a rock quarry. They were digging rock out of the place, and it showed it on the map there. And I can't tell you where it was.
Where's the Siegfried line? That's what I need to know.
Oh.
Is it Luxembourg?
It was all up the German border.
It was a German
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. It's this big dark line, I think, right
I
here.
think that must be it.
They do show it in there.
It's a Siegfried line.
Yeah, yeah. That whole dark line there, that was their big defensive,
It was
the homeland.
down. They had parts of that thing was underground, 3 or 4 floors down, and it's 6 feet of reinforced concrete pillboxes, and they had inch armor firing abrasures that they'd close or open and fire and then close, they were.
That was their
They
protection.
thought this was impregnable.
Yeah.
They thought they couldn't.
Probably was, pretty much.
It was pretty well. Well, what we were supposed to do was to make up satchel charges. You take a case of TNT, and you'd put detonators in a couple of blocks of it. It's a 1 pound block of TNT. You put detonators in a couple of them, and you had a pull igniter for a fuse on them, and you put a base of fire, a field of fire, base of fire, to fire at the abrasures on these pillboxes, so that, and you had to do 3, because if you're going to take one out, because this one over here and this one was so designed so that they covered each other.
Yeah.
So you didn't work with just one, you had to have 3 that you were working with. And the object of it was to run up 2 men with these satchel charges, which was a case of TNT, and put up against the abrasure of these things and pull these 2 detonators and get back before anybody could get you. Well, we ended up, because that didn't work too good, because this armor was
Pretty strong.
pretty well in there. And so what we ended up doing was firing at these abrasures and running up and put a thermite grenade up there, which would weld the metal to the metal caster that ran on the track, and it welded closed.
They couldn't open them and fire at
They
them.
couldn't open them. And so then what happened then was another thing too. We had these flamethrowers that when they got into their main position to run this thermite grenade up there, because you had to lay it in there. You couldn't throw it.
Yeah, you'd get up to it.
You had to get up there and put it right in the right spot. We had flamethrowers. In other words, these guys are firing at that abrasive until you got into position. When you got into position, you had a guy with you with a flamethrower, and he fired flame at it until you got up underneath the flame.
And then you'd have to cut it.
And then he'd switch it off, and right up, you'd throw it up there.
Cut it right back on.
Get it back
So they couldn't pop it open. And
Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah, you got a lot of them that way. What happened there was, the one that I remember particularly was that we got it and sealed, welded closed, and the people in there wouldn't come out. So we had a tank dozer. This is a tank with a regular bulldozer blade on it, and we pushed dirt up against the door on the thing, so he couldn't get out. Lead, you go on and lead. You got him buried alive.
Yeah.
That wasn't nice.
Yeah, you
wasn't
probably
very
give them an
humane
opportunity to come out. I
Then don't they have sporting rules in wars? I thought they had different rules.
Yeah.
How you're supposed to treat prisoners and all that is rules they go by.
Yeah,
these
well, if they'd have come out, they'd have been prisoners. They didn't come out.
They neglected part of those, how to treat them.
That was the only one I remember doing. Well, another thing happened too one time. We didn't do it. Somebody else did.
Yeah,
They got on.
must be bad.
They got
Must be worse than burying them alive, huh?
Yeah.
at night. They got up by one of them and poured gasoline
Yeah.
all around the thing and run the hatchway to it, and around the abrasive. They just, I don't know how many. There must have been a 55-gallon drum of gasoline that they spilled over the thing, and they touched it off, and the other guys see it, and the other pillboxes, they came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Decided that was not their fate.
They decided that wasn't the thing to do.
Yeah.
But that was quite a defensive position they had built there. Then the French had built the Maginot Line, which was a defensive position.
They thought, yeah.
And of all the crap that you ever saw in your life, this was it. These people had artillery pieces that would, on hydraulics, that would set up, fire, and come down. I mean, and the top goes back over on it.
But they were on your side, supposedly.
For the Germans, no, the
No,
French.
French.
The French were the Maginot. That
Oh,
was
you're
a
talking
bunch
about
of
the
crap.
German side of it? Or
Yeah, the German side. When we were in the Battle of the Bulge, during the Battle of the Bulge, we were going to fall back and take up some positions, and they says, well, we'll fall back and use the Maginot Line in our position, where we were, as a defensive position. We got back and looked at them, hell, we wouldn't get no damn thing. I'd rather be in a slit trench than what they had. On the forward side of a highway, they had a pillbox with reinforced concrete that wasn't more than 2 inches thick. Well, hell, a mortar'd knock it out.
Yeah, not only that, if it's visible, it's a target now. You
Yeah,
know?
and here you built
concentrate
a
fire.
bubble built out on the side of a highway, and then their main pillboxes were built with the abrasures on the back side, reverse side, defending each other. In other words, not a forward field of fire, a reverse field of fire. Yeah.
Well, you know, the Germans, when they first invaded, they just went around it all.
Oh, they just bypassed it.
Twice
Yeah.
they went around it. They didn't even bother with them, but it
Well,
sounded like it would have been a problem anyway.
the Maginot Line, you know, when the Germans were building Siegfried, they started building Maginot.
Yeah.
But this is what they did before. See, they bypassed the French on their main line of resistance in World War I.
Yep, and they turned around and did it again.
And then the Second World War, they did the same
They
damn
thought
thing.
it worked so well. Hell, why are we going to mess with this?
I don't give the French a lot of credit.
No, well, not certainly when it comes to, you know, they say, you know, lovers are warriors, and warriors they weren't, so they probably had to make it up being lovers. I don't know.
Well, I don't think.
So,
At the time we went in, or beginning of World War II, they were saying, oh, the French are the finest armed forces in the world. They were top grade. They're supposedly.
Well, so you got through the Siegfried line,
Yeah, well,
and they told you to go set up a defensive position in this rock quarry.
well, we were going to take this rock quarry.
Yeah.
This was a part of the whole thing. This
Part-
was after the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
This was,
The Siegfried line stuff you were talking about was also after the Battle of the Bulge, was it not?
yeah, we're still
Yeah.
trying to go through it.
Which is about where you were when the Battle of the Bulge started. You probably were at the Siegfried line, or you're not, or very close.
Yeah, because you're just beginning to get in.
That's why. That's the
Germany.
reason they were. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just
Your foot all
starting
right,
in there.
Mom?
Yeah, been swelling.
Oh.
You've been on your feet too much.
Yeah, I thought it was well. Gotta go to the doctor tomorrow. I have to have it looked well, but I haven't had it rapid. It's been pretty good yesterday. I didn't have it up at all. I was playing the cards and I
Yeah.
was stomping my feet. And it felt good. You know, I was thumping my feet on the floor. And I couldn't believe it how swollen it was last night. I thought, boy, I'm smart. I think it's well, but it's not. It's all right. You know, it's all right. Haven't you about hit all the hot spots?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was going to tell me about the quarry. That was kind of always a
Big quarry.
All right, see, I was in the 7th Army.
Yeah.
And,
page 133, huh?